I never imagined my son would steal his sister's $210K college fund for a mistress. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. It was a morning like any other, the air thick with steam from my coffee. But as I scrolled through my phone, my heart started racing. A text popped up from Samantha, my daughter. Simple words, but they hit like a punch to the gut. "Mom, where's the college fund?" "It's gone." My hands trembled. I felt the walls closing in. "No, no, no," I whispered, my voice barely escaping my lips. This couldn't be happening. It wasn't long before I discovered the truth. Ryan, my eldest, had taken it. My son. My sweet boy who could charm the birds from the trees. He had thrown away his future and his sister's for a woman I barely knew. A mistress. The word felt like a dagger twisting inside me. Samantha had worked so hard, poured her heart into school for years. She deserved that money. Each dollar was a testament to her sleepless nights, the tears she shed over algebra and chemistry. And Ryan? He had fallen into a pit of darkness I never saw coming. I had raised them well. Family dinners filled with laughter. Road trips splattered with memories. Campfires with stories that made us choke on our marshmallows. Yet here we were, on the brink of war. Trust shattered, loyalty tossed aside. The discovery came with echoes of disbelief. Samantha's eyes wide, bruised with betrayal. My heart bled, watching the pain cloud her brightness. "How could he do this to me?" she asked, her voice cracking, a storm of disbelief and hurt. I wanted to protect her. To shield her from this ugly truth, to guard her dreams. But the weight of the situation gripped me in a vice. I could feel my pulse in my ears, each heartbeat a thunderous reminder that my family was crumbling. As the clock ticked, an unsettling calm took hold. I felt a darkness creeping behind my eyelids, whispering that this was not just a family feud, it was far deeper. What had driven Ryan to this madness? I needed answers, but they danced just out of reach. And then a chilling thought struck me: was there more to this than I knew? I wanted to scream. To confront him. But something held me back. Was this truly just about a mistress? Or was it a cry for help? I stood at the edge of heartbreak, surrounded by silence that felt suffocating. My insides churned painfully, questions swirling like a maelstrom. How could love slip so easily into betrayal? I looked out the window, watching the leaves rustle in the breeze, wondering if I'd ever get back what was lost. And just when I thought I might find some clarity, the phone buzzed again. A message from Ryan. It felt like a jolt to my already fractured heart. With trembling hands, I opened it. "Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. My heart raced as I read Ryan's message for the third time. It was only a single line, but it felt heavy, a gauntlet thrown down. "Can we talk?" He had sent it an hour ago, and now it echoed in my mind, taunting me like a phantom I couldn't chase away. I felt an overwhelming urge to toss my phone across the room, to shatter that piece of technology that was the conduit of our family's chaos, but I knew there was no escaping this. Not now. I had to face him. Setting my coffee down, I eyed the clock. It was almost noon. I could wait for him to come home, but every second felt like a weight lodged in my throat. The decision was made. Grabbing my keys, I stormed out of my house, determined to confront Ryan wherever he was hiding. The drive was filled with torturous thoughts, each scenario worse than the last. I'd see him pacing, panicked, unrepentant. Or maybe he'd be reckless, shrugging my anger off like it was nothing. But as I neared the coffee shop where he often met his friends, my gut twisted with doubt. Did he even understand what he had done? Walking inside, the scent of espresso hit me like a nostalgic punch, reminding me of countless afternoons spent discussing dreams and aspirations with my kids. But those memories felt embraced by a ghostly shadow now, as I scanned the room for my son. Then, I spotted him at the corner table, fiddling with his phone, his face a mix of anxiety and defiance. "Ryan," I said, trying to keep my voice steady as I approached. The word felt heavy on my tongue, almost too much to bear. He looked up, and for a moment, our eyes locked, but I could see a wall of guilt building between us, thickening the air around us. "Mom," he said, his voice low. There was no joy, no warmth, just a chilling recognition that our once unbreakable bond was now an iceberg, drifting in turbulent waters. I sat down across from him, forcing myself to take a deep breath. "You want to talk?" I asked, though the accusation hung between us like a loaded gun. "Yeah," he began, then faltered. The silence seeped into his words, and I could see him wrestling with something I couldn't quite understand. "I made a mistake, okay?" "A huge one." "A mistake?" I echoed incredulously. "Ryan, you didn't just misplace a key, you stole your sister's future." My voice cracked, the hurt spilling out in a torrent I had struggled to contain. He flinched, the accusation hitting him harder than I anticipated. "I know that," he replied, his gaze slipping to the table. "But I didn't mean for any of this to happen." "What did you mean?" I pressed, wanting to shake the answers out of him. "What was so important that you thought taking her money was the solution?" He looked up, finally meeting my eyes, and for the first time, I saw vulnerability. "I was desperate, Mom. I needed to get in touch with a part of me I thought I lost." "What does that even mean, Ryan?" My voice softened as I saw the turmoil beneath his bravado. "It's not just the money," he whispered, tracing the grain of the table with his fingers. "I've been struggling with who I am, what I want. The pressure to be perfect. I didn't know how to ask for help. And then there's Amanda. I thought if I could impress her, somehow, it would all come together." "A woman? You jeopardized your sister's future for a fling you barely know?" The disbelief bubbled to the surface, igniting a fire in my chest where only sorrow had lived moments ago. "I can't explain it, Mom." His words burst forth with urgency. I twisted it in my mind. I thought I could fix everything. I thought if I borrowed the money borrowed. I interrupted, my heart pounding as I felt the tears prick my eyes. "You're not just borrowing money. You stole it from your sister, from me. We trusted you, Ryan, I know." He shouted, frustration spilling over. Then he slumped, the fight ebbing out of him as he sank into the seat. "But it's like everything is spiraling. I feel invisible. Don't you get it? You put yourself in that position." I replied, half shouting, yet inside, I was crumbling. "You hurt your sister. You hurt this family." Tears of frustration cascaded down my cheeks, and I could gauge the impact of my words as Ryan's face twisted with remorse. It wasn't just anger I felt, it was heartbreak, fear of losing the son I thought I knew. The cafe buzzed around us with the hustle and bustle of life moving on, but here we sat on the precipice of our future, both of us bleeding in the silence that embraced us. I was his mother, yet somehow, I felt like I was losing him to the chaos of a world he didn't know how to navigate. Then, with a renewed resolution, I leaned forward, whispering, "We can fix this, Ryan. Together. But you need to be honest with me. What is really going on?" He swallowed hard, staring out the window, as if seeking clarity from the passing world. "I can't do this alone anymore, Mom." In that moment, just as I was beginning to see a ragged sliver of hope, the door swung open. A figure stepped inside, and I froze, my heart plummeting as I recognized the woman who entered, a figure from a past I thought had vanished, but now threatened to pull Ryan deeper into darkness. Amanda. The cafe's warmth seemed to retreat as Amanda crossed the threshold, each step echoing like a distant thunderclap in my chest. The air became electric, charged with the unsaid, the unresolved. Ryan's gaze snapped to hers, and in that brief moment, I could see a myriad of emotions cascade across his face: fear, longing, and a flicker of hope that shattered my heart. "Ryan?" she called, her voice soft but laced with an edge. She seemed unbothered by the chaos between us, exuding a manipulative confidence that made my skin crawl. I didn't think you'd be here. Unwilling to let her waltz into our already fractured world, I stood up abruptly, my own body a barrier. What are you doing here? I demanded, feeling my protective instincts rally around my son. Her eyes narrowed, flicking to mine with a smirk that felt both familiar and foreign. Just came to see my boyfriend, she said, the words dripping with honeyed pretense. I choked back a retort, my heart thudding painfully in my chest. Boyfriend? I echoed, almost incredulous. Is that how you call someone who preys on another's vulnerability? Amanda's laughter rang through the air, a cruel bell that signified a painful truth. Come on, Mom. It's just teenage romance. Don't you remember what it was like? What I remember is trust, Amanda. I shot back, my frustration boiling over. Your role in this doesn't simply vanish because you want it to. You've influenced him in the worst way. Ryan flinched, sitting rigid, caught between worlds, his mother trying to protect their family and the girl who had inadvertently shattered it. Stop, he murmured, voice shaking. Please, just stop, Ryan, she's not good for you, I pleaded, dropping my voice to a whisper as I reached for his wrist, desperate to pull him back from the ledge. You can't chase after someone who's only going to drag you deeper into trouble. You need to find your own path, and it doesn't begin with betrayal. But Amanda wasn't finished. She stepped closer, fierce and unyielding. He's a grown-up, you know. If he thinks I'm worth it, why shouldn't he take a chance? There was an intensity in her stare that I had seen twist young hearts before, and it filled me with dread. Worth what? I shot back, fury igniting again inside me. Your cunning manipulation? You exploited his need for validation. What about his sister's future? He's old enough to make his own decisions, Mom, she replied dismissively, but there was a quiver beneath her confidence that hinted at something shaky within her own facade. I turned back to Ryan, pleading with my eyes for him to understand. This is not the way to handle things. You don't need her to feel alive. He looked so lost, so achingly fragile. But Mom, I thought what? That you could buy your way into someone's heart? My heart broke at the despair I saw in him. The truth was tangible in the air, a thick fog of despair that seeped into the corners of our lives, strangling the hope I clutched so tightly. As the weight of the moment bore down on us, Amanda, sensing that the tide was turning, casually plucked Ryan's phone from the table, her slender fingers dancing across the screen as she smirked. Hey, what's this? She said, her eyes gleaming mischievously. An old message. Her tone shifted the atmosphere, and in that instant, I realized she wasn't merely a visitor, she was a harbinger of secrets, a catalyst to deeper disruption. Give it back! Ryan exclaimed, lurching to grab it from her, but she was already swiping through his messages, a cruel twist of fate resonating between us. Wait. I commanded, the desperation in my voice apparent. Amanda, don't do this. You're not helping him. She paused, a self-satisfied grin spreading across her face. Oh, I think it's already too late for that, don't you? With a flourish, she read aloud, Can we talk? I think I've made a huge mistake. She glanced up at Ryan, mock concern lining her face. Is that about me? My eyes widened as my heart dropped into a pit of uncertainty and fear. Ryan looked horrified, his entire being collapsing under the weight of betrayal, not from me, but from the very person he sought to impress. Ryan, I whispered, my voice cracking. What did you tell her? The color drained from his face, anguish replacing the defiance I'd seen earlier. Amanda's laughter echoed like distant thunder, bouncing off the walls as I watched my son grapple with the emotional storm sweeping over him. Then she dropped the phone onto the table, her eyes gleaming with triumph. Cringe. Wasn't this just a great conversation? She remarked with a dismissive wave, as if shattering our world were merely a game for her amusement. My heart raced, desperately seeking any glimmer of light in the swirling shadows. We need to talk, Ryan. Now more than ever, I urged softly, my maternal instincts pleading with him to ignore the chaos she had wrought. But he was already retreating, the steely walls rising around him again. Just leave me alone. He shouted, his voice breaking. I felt the ground shift beneath me as he pushed his chair back and stood, towering over the remnants of our conversation. "Ryan!" I called, but the fear in his eyes spoke louder than words. He bolted for the door, and with that single act, I realized I was standing at the edge of losing him once and for all, caught in a storm that neither of us could control. Amanda laughed again, weaving through the chaos she had spun, leaving me to grapple with the remnants of our shattered trust. The weight of her presence filled the air like poison, and as I sank back into my chair, a shocking realization washed over me. The fight was no longer just for Ryan's future, but for the very essence of who he was. As I stared at the door he had fled through, I felt my heart splinter. I needed to find him before Amanda's shadow swallowed him whole. Time was ticking, and I feared what darkness awaited him if I didn't act quickly. The cafe's door swung closed with a breathless finality, sealing off Ryan's flight from my desperate grasp. I stared at the smooth surface of the table, the remnants of our battle playing like a haunting refrain in my mind. What had just happened? In a surreal haze, I felt the edges of my reality blur. The laughter of the patrons around me felt like a mocking whisper, a reminder that life went on while mine was unraveling. Unable to sit still, I stood up and walked to the door from which Ryan had just escaped. But something stopped me. I turned around, searching for Amanda, hoping that somehow she would bear witness to the chaos she had ignited. Instead, I found the table empty, save for Ryan's phone, still aglow with messages that had become weapons in this crossfire. A sinking feeling settled in my stomach. Was this all a game for her? Among all her wide-eyed bravado, I sensed a kernel of something else. Fear, perhaps. Even predators have their vulnerabilities. The thought lingered, but the urgency of the moment drowned out my musings. I grabbed the phone, clutching it as if it were a lifeline, hoping it held a clue on how to reach my son. With each step back to my table, I found myself questioning everything. What led Ryan to confide in Amanda? Were those moments of closeness fractured to the point of betrayal? In my heart of hearts, I had known he was struggling, but had I been so wrapped up in my own fears that I failed to see how far away he had drifted? Outside, the cool breeze cut through the warmth of the cafe, awakening my senses. I rushed through the door, scanning the street for signs of Ryan. I spotted him a few blocks down, his frame hunched against the unforgiving wind, clutching his phone as if it were a shield. Panic surged through me, propelling me forward. "Ryan!" I called, my voice trembling with urgency. He froze, but only for a moment. The moment stretched, and in that breathless silence, I could see the pain etched on his features, confusion, anger, and a heavy cloak of betrayal draped over his shoulders. "What do you want, Mom?" he replied, though his tone trembled, betraying hints of vulnerability buried beneath layers of teenage bravado. "I want to understand, sweetheart," I said softly, willing him to see my sincerity. "I didn't mean to push you away. I'm scared of losing you." He turned his back to me, staring at the pavement, the world around us dulling beneath the weight of unspoken words. "You're afraid I'll become like her," he said, his voice shaking. "Maybe you don't see how wrong you are about Amanda. She just gets me, Ryan. She's playing you like a fiddle," I replied, desperation spilling over. "I've seen her type before. I can't stand by and watch while she pulls you deeper into a mess that you can't unravel alone." He spun around, his eyes flashing with hurt. "It's my life. Why can't you just trust me to make my own choices?" The walls he had put up felt insurmountable, cutting off the path to the sun I yearned to reach. "Because I love you," I retorted, my voice rising with raw emotion. "I love you too much to stand by while you make mistakes that could haunt you forever. Amanda isn't just a girl, Ryan. She's a distraction from everything we're trying to face as a family." As the air crackled between us, I could see the glimmers of hope slipping through my fingers. "You're not meant to handle this alone," I said, lowering my voice. "We are in this together. Please, let me help you." Ryan's eyes softened for a fleeting moment, exposed to the warmth of my plea. But then, a shadow crossed his face. "What if it's too late?" A faint voice from behind me startled us both, and I turned to see Amanda leaning against a street lamp, her expression unreadable. "Just when I thought the drama was over," she drawled, her playful smirk replaced by something darker. "You two having a heart-to-heart or planning an escape route?" The force of her presence felt stifling, the threat of her influence heavy in the air. My stomach churned as I sensed a deeper threat. "What are you doing here?" I demanded, even as a numbing fear settled over me. She stepped closer, unyielding. "Maybe I wanted to make sure Ryan didn't get lost," she replied sweetly, a predatory glint sparking in her eyes. "After all, he might need someone who understands him better than his mother does." "Get away from him!" I shouted, overriding the fear threatening to freeze me in place. Ryan stood between us, his face stricken, caught in an impossible crossfire. "Stop, please. I can handle this." "No, you can't," I countered. The suffocating air was thick with desperation and dread. Just when I thought I might lose my footing, Amanda seized the chance to strike deeper. "Maybe you should worry less about me and more about what you just did, Ryan," Amanda said, her voice like poisoned honey. "Did you really steal from your sister's college fund to help your friends? That's betrayal." Why not admit it? The world around me froze, my heart stalling in disbelief. Ryan's expression shifted, a cascade of horror and shame etched into every feature. "That's not true," he shouted, but the crack in his voice betrayed the fragile walls he had built around his secrets. "Isn't it?" she replied, her voice dripping with condescension. "You know it is. You won't escape it this time." The ground dropped from beneath my feet, leaving an abyss of uncertainty before me. My mind raced, piecing together the scattered fragments of his recent errands, the half-lies that had begun to bleed into truths. What was happening? Ryan clenched his jaw, tears glimmering in his eyes. "You don't know anything." "But I do." Amanda shot back, her presence relentless. "You're too far gone already, making choices that will ruin your future. Maybe we all need to learn the hard way." "Enough!" I shouted, the last strand of my composure stretching thin. The panic clawed at my insides, threatening to consume me whole. But as I looked back at Ryan, I realized that whatever fragile connection still lingered between us was cracked, splintered, and perhaps lost. I needed to act. Every moment felt like a stone tumbling down a cliff, gathering momentum toward a deadly fall. I reached out a trembling hand, ready to grasp his, ready to pull him back before it truly became too late. "Ryan, please," I begged, my voice breaking. "No matter what, we can face this together. Just don't trust her." "Not now." "Not ever." He hesitated, torn between the allure of her reckless freedom and my unwavering love. "Mom," he whispered, the weight of regret hanging heavily in the air between us. And just as I thought I might reach him, Amanda's eyes narrowed, a predator sensing her window of opportunity close. "Think carefully, Ryan. The path you choose now will mark your future, and so will your mother's influence." The air was electric with tension, and at that moment, I knew we stood on the precipice of chaos, ready to be pushed over the edge. The world spun as if the street beneath us had turned to liquid, and all my fears rushed to the surface like surfacing bubbles in a glass of water. The echoes of Amanda's suggestions rang in my ears. Stealing from his sister's future? How could this be happening? "Ryan, please," I pleaded, sensing the seconds slipping away like grains of sand through my fingers. "Tell me it's not true. You'd never do something like that." My heart thudded painfully against my ribs, each beat feeling like a countdown to an impending disaster. He shifted uncomfortably, the raw honesty of his emotions showing through. I could see the internal war raging behind his eyes, his impulse toward Amanda's chaos jarring against the love and loyalty we had forged in quieter times. "Mom, Ryan," Amanda cut in, her voice smothering and sweet, yet poisonous. "Maybe you should just admit who you are before it's too late. Why live a lie? She won't ever understand you like I do." I could see Ryan wrestling with the words, caught in a riptide of emotions. What had she woven into his mind? Had she poisoned his perception of me so completely that he couldn't see who genuinely wanted what was best for him? "What about your sister? Your family?" I urged, feeling the gravity of the situation settle like a weight on my chest. "Stop!" he shouted, his raw desperation piercing through the suffocating noise of chaos. Underneath the surface of his bravado, his vulnerability was like a beacon piercing through the cloud of lies. "You have no idea what it's like to feel trapped. To feel like you don't belong anywhere. His words hit me like icy water. I felt them echo inside me, a recognition that perhaps I had been so consumed with my own fears that I'd failed to see the depth of his struggles. What makes you think I wouldn't understand? I've been fighting to keep us together, Ryan. It's why I've been pushing for us to talk, to share. He turned, the anguish in his face striking me like a punch. Every time I tried to talk, you turned away. You were too busy, he sputtered, his voice breaking. Too busy worrying about your own problems to see mine. The truth hung heavy between us, suffocating in its weight. And instead of coming to me, you chose to trust her? I gestured toward Amanda, who remained a looming shadow at the edge of our fray, reveling in the discord she had stirred. You don't get to decide who I trust. His face was taut with betrayal. You think you know me, but you don't. Amanda understands the mess I'm in. She listens, Ryan. If she understood, she wouldn't let you throw everything away. My heart ached for him, for the pieces of my son that seemed to slip further from my grasp. Amanda interjected, a smile that didn't reach her eyes curling her lips. Maybe if someone had seen how much he needed help, he wouldn't have had to look outside for it, she taunted, her words venomous. In that moment, a flicker of defiance ignited within me, a desperate need to protect my boy no matter the cost. Don't you dare twist this around to make me the villain in your sad little game, I spat. You have no idea what it means to truly care for someone, but I do, she countered, stepping forward, relentless as a tide. I care enough to let him be free, to embrace who he truly is, free? I repeated, incredulous. You call manipulating him freedom? Her insinuation hung in the air, tangling with my fears that perhaps I hadn't done enough to show Ryan the way home. Do you think that's what being free means? I asked, desperation clawing at my throat. Ryan flinched, torn between his loyalty to me and the allure of Amanda's reckless independence. I could see the struggle branding his face, the internal fight between childhood and the lurking shadows of adulthood. Who had I lost him to? Just as I reached for him again, to capture that flickering glimmer of connection between us, his phone buzzed, drawing his attention away. He glanced at the screen. For a moment, pain and confusion clouded his features, only to be replaced by a rigid determination. I have to go, he said suddenly, shaking his head vehemently, as if breaking free from invisible chains. Go? I echoed, heart pounding in disbelief. Where do you think this will lead you? Running away is not the answer. But Ryan's eyes were resolute, the kindling of rebellion igniting a fire within him that I couldn't help but fear. I have to face this my way, he said, his voice resolute. Before I could utter another word, he turned on his heel and began to walk away. Ryan, please. I cried, the air rushing from my lungs as I reached out, my hand trembling in desperation. Amanda grinned, a victorious jolt tunneling through her as she sensed her victory, her eyes mirrored in excitement. He'll come around. He always does. I felt my world crumble as I struggled to catch Ryan's retreating figure. The raw reality of losing him, losing not just my son, but the fragile bridge we had tried to rebuild, hit me like a torrential force. The thought spiraled, chilling me to the bone. Then, amid the turmoil, a text message chimed in Ryan's pocket. I watched as he hesitated, the light of his phone illuminating his face like a spotlight in the dark. An instant later, his expression morphed, confusion replaced by dread. What is it? I asked, my heart racing with an urgent sense of foreboding. A chilling silence enveloped the air as he glanced at the screen before lifting his eyes to meet mine, just long enough for me to see something dark and unnerving flicker there. He began, and I felt the shrapnel of dread slice through me, knowing that whatever was on the other side of that message could change everything. I stood frozen, words buried deep in my throat, my heart whispered a prayer that whatever he had read hadn't sealed our fates beyond repair. Mom, it's about Dad. A storm was brewing in his voice, circling around all the unspoken truths we had brushed under the carpet for so long. He needs us. The air shifted, heavy with the promise of revelations unseen, and just like that, all bets felt off. As Ryan opened his mouth to reveal the truth that had me shaking to my core, I realized that while fate hung in the balance, we were teetering on the edge of a darker abyss, and I had no clue how far we would fall. The sky loomed gray and heavy, mirroring the suffocating weight pressing down on my heart. Ryan stood there, his phone in hand, and for a moment, the world around us blurred into insignificance. All I could see was my son, the boy I had loved fiercely since the day he was born, the boy who was still finding his way amid the confusion of his emotions. "Ryan, what do you mean?" My voice trembled as I stepped forward, desperate to understand, to hear the words spill from his lips. The gnawing dread clawed at my stomach, threatening to spill out into tangible terror. "It's about Dad," he said again, but the urgency in his tone was different now. It was sharpened by something deep, something profound. Ryan hesitated, shaking his head as if he could somehow ward off the truth before it could touch us. "Ryan, please." The sheer weight of his admission dangled precariously in the air. "What does he need? Is he in trouble?" I struggled to breathe, as if even the simplest question could unravel the fragile threads binding our family. Tears glistened in Ryan's eyes, and the boy who stood firm moments earlier began to crumble. "He asked for help. He said he didn't mean to push us away, that he's been sick." The final word fell like a hammer, heavy and precise. Sick. The word echoed through my mind like a cruel clock ticking down the moments we had left to grasp at something like normalcy. "What kind of sick?" My voice was barely a whisper, yet every syllable felt as though it cut deep. "Cancer," he confessed, and in the silence that ensued, it was as if a tangible shadow stretched across the ground between us, darkening every hope that had flickered in my heart. Overwhelmed, the air slipped from my lungs. I stumbled, my hands clutching at my chest. It felt as if I had been punched in the gut, and the ground struggled to find stability beneath my feet. "How do you know this? Did he tell you?" Ryan nodded slowly, eyes searching mine for understanding, for love, for any shred of connection that hadn't been severed in the chaos of the last several weeks. "He reached out," he explained, his voice cracking as the tears streamed freely down his cheeks, unstopped by anger or confusion. "He wants to try to reconnect. He feels he hasn't done right by us. That he's running out of time. In that heartbeat, everything spiraled. The bitter realization of our life choices, the divisions we had built between family members, the heartaches, and the betrayals seemed trivial against the backdrop of the enormity of his words. How could I still be angry when my heart was flooded with a different pain entirely? A tumult of feelings roiled within me, breaking against the rocks of 100 regrets. "I don't know how to do this, Ryan," I admitted, crying along with him now. The truth had shattered whatever flimsy facade of calm I had tried to maintain. What if I can't forgive him? What if he leaves again, and this time we're left with nothing? What if we gave up everything just for him to Mom?" He interjected, his voice firm yet fragile, momentarily pulling me from the abyss of despair. "You can't let that fear dictate who we are or how we act. You can be angry, you can feel hurt. But we owe it to ourselves to try, to see if there's still a chance to heal what's broken." His earnestness reached inside me, igniting a flicker of hope against my fear. I wanted to embrace it, to wrap it around both of us like a shield against the chaos we faced. But the hopelessness, the rage twisted around my heart, whispering doubts that refused to be silenced. I can't just forget everything that's happened. I can't take away the pain. I don't even know how to face him. My voice cracked, but within it lay an undeniable call for a path forward amid a fractured past. "Then don't forget it," Ryan urged, his determination guiding him. "But we can move forward together, as a family. That's what he wants. If he's sick, if he really wants to make things right, we owe it to ourselves to listen. To give him a chance." The tension hung thick between us, woven tightly into the fabric of our uncertainty. "And what about Amanda? How did we even let her pull us apart like this?" As the name slipped from my lips, I saw Ryan bristle. "I don't know. Maybe she's not who I thought she was. Maybe it's all just a distraction," he confessed, his voice layered with guilt and regret. "I never wanted to hurt you, Mom. I didn't realize I was walking away from the best support I could have." The revelation throbbed in the air, shimmering in the sunlight that peeked through the overcast sky. The kindness he sought from me was like a thread, tenuous yet promising as a point of reconnection. Just as I opened my mouth to respond, another message buzzed from Ryan's phone. Gulping back my anxiety, I eyed him, willing one of us to take the plunge and look, to embrace whatever uncertainty it contained. What else is there? With shaky hands, he glanced at the screen, and the color drained from his face. The look on his face shifted into one of dread that left my heart plummeting anew. Oh God, it's from Amanda. Ryan's voice faltered. She's threatening to expose something she knows about our dad. The air crackled with tension, each word laced with a web of implications and dangers that could unweave everything we had just begun to deem salvageable. What can she possibly know? Ryan shook his head, confusion painted on his features. Something about his past, something worse than just him being sick, he murmured, confusion burning in his eyes. Mom, if we don't do something fast, we could lose everything all over again. They could come after us. My heart raced as I reached for his arm, the icy fingers of dread crawling along my skin. Then we have to face her, together. We can't let her destroy what little chance we have left. Yet behind my resolution, I could feel the shadows encroaching, whispering of old betrayals and heartbreak. The storm within my heart howled louder than ever, and I knew that the path facing us was fraught with peril. As Ryan nodded, determination sparking in his eyes, I glimpsed a glimmer of what we could reclaim if we banded together to confront the storm, yet in that instant, I could also feel the trepidation. Would confronting Amanda reveal another, darker truth? How far would the tendrils of her manipulation reach to devastate us again? Would we ever truly escape the shadows of our past, or were we destined to fall deeper into the abyss? The questions lingered, unwelcome but persistent, leaving us on the precipice of a cataclysmic revelation. The rain fell steadily now, drumming against the old porch roof, each drop a reminder of the heaviness looming over us. I wrapped my arms around myself, seeking warmth in a world that had suddenly turned cold and distant. The air was thick with unsaid words and unresolved tensions, and Ryan stood there, his expression a mix of determination and youthful vulnerability. Ryan, I breathed, my voice finding its way through the storm brewing in my heart. This feels too big. It's too much. The sensation of helplessness washed over me in a rush, and I struggled to keep my footing, balancing between the desire for connection and the fear of being shattered anew. For a moment, we stood in silence, the reality of our fragmented family looming larger than the rain-soaked world around us. Then Ryan spoke. We can't ignore this, Mom. I don't want to lose you or our dad. Not again. His vulnerability struck a chord within me, an echo of my own fears reflected in his youthful visage. I faltered, glancing away from his piercing gaze. What if exposing Amanda leads to more pain? She knows what buttons to push, Ryan. I fear that confronting her will only unearth more darkness, things we can't come back from. In his eyes, I saw an unexpected flash of maturity, as though he had already begun to peer through the layers of hurt that had encased our family for far too long. We can't let fear rule us. If she thinks she can manipulate us because of Dad's past, we have to confront that power head-on. The steady conviction of his words struck deeply, illuminating paths I hadn't even considered. Her threats could tear apart what remains of this family, I replied, grappling with rising panic as the visions of an uncertain future wormed their way into my mind. What if we end up risking everything? What if Dad's past is even darker than we anticipate? A sudden gust of wind swept through the trees, shaking the branches gently, as if the world around us breathed in tandem with our struggle. Mom, sometimes you have to plunge into the abyss to find the light, Ryan encouraged. If we can't rely on each other, what's the point? Plunge into the abyss, I echoed, the words resonating with the conflict inside me, yet I could feel the walls of my resolve beginning to crumble. You're wiser than I deserve. But this feels dangerous. Just then, Ryan's phone buzzed again, vibrating against his palm, and the moment drew taut with expectancy. I held my breath, anticipating the news with a heavy heart. Would it bring more anguish or perhaps uncover a way to piece together our fractured world? Is it Amanda again? I asked, knowing that whatever news he held could tip the precarious balance of our reality. He glanced down, and the horror etched itself into his face once more. My heart dropped at a deep, anguished pit opening inside me. No, it's about Dad, he said quietly, the tremor in his voice sending chills racing down my spine. Ryan, what is it? I whispered, my hands gripping his shoulders, the fierce mother bear instinct kicking into overdrive, desperate to protect him from whatever was coming. Hesha's going back into treatment. Ryan's voice shattered at the end, his immediate worry shaping the air between us like a knife poised to cut deep. Good. That's good, I reassured him somewhat mechanically, each word a rickety plank built atop my own conflicting fears. But inside, dread twisted. What if this treatment was all for nothing? What if it unearthed more of the shadows he had long been hiding? He also wants to see both of us, not just to tell us about his sickness, Ryan added, his eyes glistening with unshed confusion, an imploring call for guidance. He hasn't given us the details yet. It's his way, Mom always liked to protect us, but this time he hesitated, his voice hanging in the thick air. This time he has to face all of it, and with that revelation, the storm clouding my heart deepened. Our father, a man whose decisions had reverberated through our lives, creating echoes of hurt, was reaching for us, grabbing at the remaining threads before it all fell apart. What does he want to say? I asked, bracing myself for the potential devastation of new revelations. I don't know. Ryan shrugged, frustration rippling through his features. But he said he wanted honesty. Maybe he'll finally tell us everything, maybe he'll confess everything he's hidden from us. The concept of confessing sent a fresh wave of anxiety through me, and I shook my head, trying to stay anchored amidst the raging doubt. Ryan, this is risky. He's asking us to trust him, to believe that he's changed. But what if it's just another manipulation? How do we navigate his honesty when we've already been burned by lies? His expression shifted to one I recognized all too well, a blend of anger and grief that mirrored my own. I don't know. He exclaimed, tears spilling again, unchecked. But it's our choice now, Mom. We decide what we want. Do we want to keep letting his choices control us, or do we find a way to break free together? As he spoke, a fragile thread lit between us. It illuminated the bonds of connection still lingering beneath the layers of hurt. And while every instinct roared against it, I began to understand the truth simmering in his words. We could confront the past, even if it meant delving into darkness. Together, we could face Amanda, our pain, and our father's uncertainty. But as dawn crept into the edges of my mind, I felt the anxiety surge anew, for I couldn't shake the tightening grip of dread that rounded in my chest. Ryan. I began slowly, unsure if I wanted to give shape to the burgeoning fear clawing at the edges of my heart. If we dig deeper, if we expose everything, what if we find something worse? What if Amanda isn't the only one holding something over us? His eyes widened, realization dawning upon us both. The shadows of the past weren't just limited to our father's hidden secrets but loomed larger than we anticipated. Could there be more truths resting beneath the surface that awaited their unveiling? We were standing on the precipice of revelations that could change everything yet again. As silence enveloped us, the weight of uncertainty grew heavier, the rain continuing its steady rhythm, wrapping us in a cocoon of apprehension and potential discovery. Would delving into our family's secret unravel everything we had fought to preserve, or would it finally grant us the freedom we all so desperately needed? The questions echoed in our hearts, leading to the inescapable conclusion: the deeper we explored, the more unsteady our footing became. And as we stood there, trembling at this newfound crossroads, two undeniable truths gripped me. One lingering question could alter our fates forever: were we ready for the flood of revelations waiting just beneath the surface? The sun rose the next day, draping our home in a hesitant light that felt both warm and unnerving. As morning unfurled, I could hear the clattering of dishes in the kitchen, a mundane sound that contrasted sharply with the gnawing tumult inside me. Ryan's subdued energy wrapped around us like fog, thick and pervasive. I made my way downstairs, drawn by the scents of coffee and toast, the familiarity of routine feeling almost absurd in light of the tempest swirling just beneath our skins. There he was, Ryan, pouring himself a bowl of cereal, his back turned toward me. He seemed engrossed in whatever animated the distractions of his day, yet the tension radiating from him was palpable. "Hey," I ventured, attempting to breathe warmth into the cool air between us. "Morning," he replied, but his voice was flat, lacking the buoyancy of our previous conversations. I approached cautiously, resting my elbow on the table, watching him circle his spoon aimlessly through the watery milk. "Did you sleep at all?" he sighed heavily. Not really. It feels like everything is on a loop, you know? I keep replaying Dad's words in my head. Sometimes it helps to talk it through, I offered gently, though I knew the comfort I longed to share felt far-fetched. Talking only gets us so far, Mom, he muttered, the frustration palpable as his spoon connected with the bowl in sharp jabs. It's pushing through the noise that matters. I wanted nothing more than to reach for him, to draw him close, but the space between us felt more like an abyss than the small kitchen table that separated our realities. You're right, I finally said, struggling to keep my voice steady. But I need to understand what you really feel about seeing your dad. He paused, his spoon halting midair. I want to believe he's better, that he'll finally tell us the truth. But what if all this time, it's just another ruse to pull us back into his web? His words struck me a profound fear that mirrored my own uncertainties. You love him despite everything, don't you? I asked, lauded by the weight of that truth hanging suspended between us. Of course I do, he said, the answer rolling out with immediate certainty, yet layered with layers of anguish. But love isn't enough. I don't even know if I can forgive him for what he did to you, to us. The heaviness hung in the air, haunted by the ghosts of our past. My chest tightened, yet I couldn't dismiss the sliver of hope piercing the shadow. Ryan, forgiveness isn't a destination, it's a process, I said softly, feeling the tremor of vulnerability return. And maybe it starts today. Maybe focusing on us, on what we need, is the bridge we have to cross before we speak to him. He nodded slowly, absorbing my words, but I sensed that our talk of forgiveness skimmed the surface of the vast emotional ocean. He was grappling with emotions that ran deeper than the initial hurt, things unsaid, unprocessed, like the crumbled notes he had hidden beneath his bed. Suddenly, his phone buzzed, slicing through our moment. I glanced over, worry bubbling up at the unwelcome intrusion. Is it him? I asked cautiously. Ryan grabbed the device, his expression shifting as he read whatever was on the screen. It's Amanda, he said with a grimace, the very name feeling like a dark cloud suddenly eclipsing our fragile light. She wants to meet. Right now. A shiver ran through me, threads of apprehension weaving through my veins. What does she want? I asked, dread saturating every syllable. Some sort of ultimatum, he replied, his fingers clenching around the phone. She's threatening to go public with everything if we don't cooperate with her plans. The forbidden list of fears cascading in my mind spiraled, tightening around my throat. We had pressed forward, believing that the confrontation with our father and Amanda might bring some clarity, but it felt like we were being coerced into deeper darkness. What do we do? I asked instinctively, the weight of the impending decision bearing down on us. Maybe we flip the script, Ryan suggested hesitantly, his brows knitting together. We control the narrative. Meet with her, but not in the way she expects. We can't cower. We need to show her that we won't be intimidated anymore. Etched in his words was a transformation, a determination I hadn't noticed blooming beneath the surface of his pain. But even as hope flickered in my chest, so did anxiety at the suggestion. Ryan, that's dangerous. She's unpredictable. What choice do we have? If she has the leverage, she'll just keep coming for us until we break, he said, each word sharpened with resolve. We have to be ready for whatever she throws our way. My heart raced, torn between wanting to protect him and desiring to honor his growing strength. This felt like a crossroads of resilience, light gripping against the suffocating shadows. Okay, I finally said, choosing to lend my courage to his conviction. We meet her together. As we gathered our bearings, packing the noise of uncertainty and an uncertain plan, Ryan's phone buzzed again, revealing a message that sent our hearts plummeting through the floorboards. She wants to meet at our old house. The air around us grew palpably still, the connection to our past bearing down like shackles. My eyes locked onto Rianchi's vulnerability mirrored an intensity of emotions, a daunting revelation dawning within the grim corners of his mind. Mom, he whispered, his voice wavering like paper in the wind. What could she possibly want there? As the fragments reassembled in our hearts, one undeniable thought surfaced like a tidal wave. Would confronting Amanda in that space, a relic of old wounds, give us the answers we craved or tear open fresh scars that were still raw and festering? Together, we stood on the brink of an inevitable confrontation with the pasta-churning mixture of hope and dread laced within each heartbeat, echoing the silent prayer that this would be the moment we took back control. The drive to the old house felt interminable, each mile stretching the fabric of time into a warped reflection of our anxious hearts. As we moved through the familiar streets, landscapes of our past flashed by like fragments of memories, playgrounds where laughter lingered, the corner store where birthdays were celebrated with sugary treats, and the school Ryan had once adored. But those bright scenes now stood in stark contrast to the shadows gathering over us, the ghost of unresolved conflict trailing like an unwelcome passenger in the car. Ryan's silence radiated a mix of determination and trepidation. I could feel his fingers tapping rhythmically against his thigh, a subconscious attempt to ground himself in an unpredictable moment. What if she's waiting for us, armed with all those threats she hinted at? He finally spoke, his voice cracking slightly. She can threaten us all she wants, Ryan. I turned to him, desperate to infuse unwavering strength into my tone. We have the truth on our side, and the past isn't going to dictate how we handle ourselves today. What if the truth doesn't change anything? His gaze was a storm, swirling with doubt as he stared out the window. Then we'll confront it together, I said, heart constricting as the truth dawned upon me. No matter what happens, we face it as a team. We pulled up to the house, a battered version of the home I once cherished, its paint peeling and garden overgrown, haunted by time and memories both tragic and tender. It appeared not just neglected but abandoned, somehow reflective of the fragility of our family ties. I looked at Ryan, seeing a boy still caught between childhood and adulthood, grappling with emotions I couldn't fully shield him from. Ready? I asked, though I felt far from it myself. Yeah, he replied, his voice steadied yet trembling beneath the surface. We stepped out of the car, the air thick with unresolved tension that distorted our senses. Every creak of the wooden planks beneath our feet seemed to echo our fears as we approached the front door. Just as I reached for the knob, the door swung open, revealing Amanda draped across the threshold, her smile often charming, now cold wrapped around her lips like a serpent poised to strike. Ryan. Just the person I wanted to see, she chirped, and the dissonance of her tone sent shivers racing up my spine. Let's get this over with, he said, his voice brooked no argument, and I could feel his body taut, coiling like a spring. With a flick of her wrist, she beckoned us in, stepping aside to allow us entry into the dimly lit foyer. Inside, she demanded, closing the door with a finality that made my stomach churn. The living room was a graveyard of our past, filled with discounted furniture draped in dust. Faded family photos lined the walls, remnants of moments once alive now reduced to just echoes. It felt stifling, weighed down by the expectations of what was about to unfold. I assume you're wondering why I called you here, Amanda began, her tone sweet yet edged with something far more sinister. It's time we had a proper chat and settled the scores. Settling into a corner of the room that had once been a cozy gathering place felt wrong, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath in anticipation. I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just an ambush for answers but a strategic game she had meticulously plotted. Ryan broke through the heavy tension. If this is about threats, know that we're not afraid of you, Amanda. You don't have anything over us anymore. Oh, sweet boy, she said with a laugh that dripped with mockery. That's where you're mistaken. You see, it's not just your father's words that matter, it's the backstory I carry. And if you don't cooperate with me, I might just reveal some truths concerning your beloved college fund, and let's not forget that juicy detail about who really put the money in there. A chill swept through me. It was as if she had reached into a hidden vault of our vulnerabilities and threatened to expose them for all to see. Ryan stiffened beside me, his body language shifting from defiance to confusion. What do you mean? He demanded, the concern lacing his voice causing my heart to race. That fund isn't only meant for your education, honey, Amanda said, her expression shifting into something almost predatory. There are strings tied to it. You, dear Ryan, are quite the pawn in this game. As her words seeped into the air between us, the reality of her insinuation began to swirl my thoughts into a disarray. In an aching moment, it became clear that Amanda wasn't simply forcing us to confront our father's lies, she was positioning herself as a player of an even larger, insidious game, one where we were unwittingly embroiled in an invisible narrative that could unravel everything we had once held dear. My fear surged, and before I could suppress it, I voiced the unthinkable thought lingering beneath the surface. You're lying. This isn't about money, It's about power over Ryan, isn't it? Amanda's smile faltered for a brief moment, before returning more wicked than before. Power is simply another form of wealth, dearest. But I must admit, I do enjoy how worried you look. Stop. Just stop. Ryan shouted, the anger breaking through the turmoil that had settled in his heart. You think you can control us with your games? You think you can play us against each other? In the fraught silence that followed, a sudden realization dawned, a terrifying possibility that transcended the smarted contrasts of our conversation with her. Mom, Ryan's voice turned softer, edged with desperation. What do you want me to do? As Amanda's gaze flicked between us, her expression poised and calculating, I realized then that we were no longer just facing her. We were standing atop the precipice of a new conflict that tested not only the resilience of our family ties but the very essence of hope we clung to in this precarious moment. The choice laid bare before us felt insurmountable, and in that very instant, I understood that we were not just wrestling against Amanda, we were wrestling against the demons of our past, shackled by each whisper of betrayal and the promise of revelations yet to come. With a final desperate breath, I steeled myself for what was next, my heart racing to shield my son from yet another wave of darkness, not yet realizing how deep the waters would run. But as the tension thickened, all that remained burning against the shadows was a haunting question that filled the air: how far was I willing to go to protect him, even if it meant unleashing an even darker storm? The tension in the room was suffocating, pressing against my chest like a heavy lead. Amanda stood before us, her smirk cutting through our fragile resolve as she played with our emotions like a puppeteer tugging strings. Ryan stood beside me, his hands clenching into fists, the anger bubbling beneath his skin ready to surface. The words I had wanted to say, those hopeful beliefs about family and unity, now felt bankrupt in the presence of such manipulation and deceit. Let's not act like we're all buddies here, Amanda began, her voice smooth, like ice gliding over glass. You need to understand, this fund wasn't just gifted out of pure generosity. There are strings attached to it. If you choose to fight me, you'll learn just how far I'm willing to go. Back off. Ryan's voice boomed, quivering with unspent fury. You don't hold any power over us not anymore. You can't leverage my past against my father's failings. Amanda's expression flickered for just a moment, revealing a crack in her confident facade. You see, that's where you're wrong. If your father thought I was simply a phase he could dismiss, he has another thing coming. You both live in your own little world where love is enough to conquer it all, but let's face it, truth can be a weapon, and I hold the gun. A shiver ran down my spine as I sensed the darkness firmly nestled beneath her words. My heart thudded painfully in my chest. What do you want? I pushed through the witching silence I had held, my voice steadier than I felt. She leaned in, the intrigue twisting her lips into a smirk. I want to make a deal. Work with me, and I'll keep the details of your father's past under wraps. Refuse, and let's see how long the trust remains intact in this lovely little family unit of yours. What could you possibly know about Dad? Ryan interjected, voice brittle yet feisty. You think you can just waltz in like you own this place and make demands, but I do own a part of your story, Ryan, she replied, her voice a whisper now, each word laced with venom. The truth is, your father made choices that shaped not just who he is, but who you could become. If you stand against me, you're standing against your blood. My heart plummeted at her manipulation, the way she pitted family against family, drawing lines where there should have been none. We're not afraid of you, Amanda, I declared, determination rising. Our bond is stronger than your tricks. Ryan, don't believe her. You can't let her control your fate or your father's mistakes. We will choose our own path, together. The strength of my voice echoed against the walls, driving away the specter of her threats, at least for that moment. Ryan looked at me, uncertainty clouding his features. But what about Dad? He asked, the tremor in his voice betraying the confidence he tried so hard to uphold. He's asked for help, and we might not have second chances. If what she says is true, what if he's hiding more? Amanda's laughter sliced through the atmosphere. Oh, the tragedy of family drama. But really, sweet boy, it's not that complicated. Just imagine a father's legacy, a sister's future. All it takes is one little push from me. In that moment, all of my carefully constructed defenses faltered. I wanted to shield Ryan, to fend off the poisonous influence that threatened to dismantle our family, but here she was, armed with shadows from past betrayals yet weighing on our present. You want us to make a deal? I challenged, locking onto her gaze, fiercer than I had ever known myself to be. You clearly don't understand the depth of our love, how far we'd go to protect one another. Your threats don't intimidate us, they only serve to galvanize our resolve. You may have a message, but the mess is still yours, she shot back, a wicked glint in her eyes. Enough. Ryan shouted, his voice vibrating with conviction that felt like steel. This isn't about you, Amanda. We refuse to play your game. Your manipulation isn't going to destroy us from the inside out. As the words fell, the room seemed to tilt, eternally shifting on a pivot of fears and unclarities. I caught a glimpse of Ryan, really seeing him in that moment, the boy I had raised with laughter and love, yet now standing on the edge of a cliff, a battlefield he didn't choose. It was in that instant, I was struck by the power of his belief, it reflected in my own heart, reminding me why I had fought so hard to keep our family together. The silence settled heavy around us like a caustic fog, aftershocks sing through the air. And then Amanda huffed in exasperation. You think you can outmaneuver me? You underestimate my abilities to twist those vulnerabilities into a wicked plot against your family, she replied, flipping the narrative as if we were mere pawns in a board game. Let's turn the tables, I declared, my voice steady, freshly ignited with a spark new and engaging. What if we expose every ounce of truth about your manipulation to your own arsenal, turn it against you before it consumes us? I could see the wheels turning in Ryan's mind, an understanding brewing behind a veil of rage. I included him in the maneuvering, and I felt our bond resonate like a tuning fork beyond the walls she constructed. A stronger understanding took shape. What do you mean? You don't have evidence, Amanda shot back, surprising fear creeping into her tone amidst confidence. I don't need evidence to see through your charade, I replied, a sense of lucidity washing over me. Just like threats don't work for us anymore, they will not work for you. We've called your bluff. Ryan grabbed my hand, a spark igniting between us as he drew strength from my unwavering gaze. Let's finish this, together, Mom. I locked eyes with him, the reassuring sense of unity coming back into focus. The walls felt less isolating now, infused with hope. We won't let your deception dictate our choices any longer, Amanda, I added resolutely. Your game ends here. Her expression morphed into shock for a fleeting breath, then quickly hardened again. Very well, she said dismissively, straightening her posture. But be warned, this choice doesn't set your path into a fairy tale. You can't control me, and I'll keep reminding you both of your father's failures until there is nothing left of your trust. Ryan's face turned ashen, yet behind it glimmered a furious resolve. Things will change. If Dad is sick, we'll be there for him, but we will shape our path beyond your reach. The authorities will be involved if you dare cross the line, I declared, feeling the urgency slip into the cracklings of my heart. The tension dripped from Amanda's predatory grin. Good luck holding everything together, then. Keep your secrets close because I'll be watching. With that, Amanda turned on her heel, the shadow surrounding her like a cloak, wavering just long enough for us to see a glimpse of vulnerability before she slipped away. The door slammed behind her, connecting the final threads of our conflict. The room fell silent, every emotion held in a suspended moment as Ryan and I faced each other. We did it, right? He murmured, his voice tremulous but hopeful. Together, like always, I affirmed, words brushing away the lingering doubt. Somewhere in the silence that succeeded the storm, echoes of fear faded, replaced by a determination that felt long buried but had always lingered beneath the surface. This was just the beginning, an awakening to confront our past. No longer would we allow fear to dictate our roles nor let shadows dictate the direction we'd take. From that moment forward, we faced an uncertain future together, holding firm against whatever storms lay ahead. Every choice became a building block, one step toward reclaiming our narrative, and in that reclaimed power, I finally felt the flickers of hope return. As we turned to leave, the sunlight streamed through the cracks in the aged wood, illuminating the path before us with the gentle caress of warmth. In that moment, I realized the ultimate truth: we were more than the sum of our betrayals. We were family, scarred but resilient. And no one could take that away from us, not now, not ever. As Ryan and I stepped out, I felt every bit of fear and tension dissolve, echoing the new truth repeating within my heart, no more secrets, we take control. And with each step, a deeper understanding began to unfurl. The path to healing would be arduous, but as Ryan clasped my hand tightly in his, our bodies moving in sync, I knew this was only the beginning, a testament to our commitment, a shared journey toward forgiveness that could finally herald the power of love against the shadows, because together, we would turn the tides. Together, love would prevail. Together, we would make it right, the most powerful resolution in the face of darkness. And as we walked into the golden light, I whispered, the strongest bonds can weather any storm.